The crystalline ceiling of the Grand Conclave shimmered, reflecting the anxious faces of the krill. A collective tremor, imperceptible to less sensitive species, rippled through the assembled dignitaries, a physical manifestation of the dread that clung to the air like a suffocating shroud. Around the central platform, where the high counselors of the Krill Empire traditionally convened, the usual vibrant tapestry of bioluminescent flora, meticulously cultivated to soothe the nerves of the participants, seemed to dim, its colors muted by the pervasive fear. They had entered the silent worship, the designated area for peaceful meditation and spiritual reflection. They had done so with the utmost respect. They had prepared everything, but something had gone horribly wrong. High Counselor Xyler, his 6 multifaceted eyes darting across the room, attempted to project an air of composure, a task made nearly impossible by the events of the last planetary cycle. The reports had been disturbing, unfathomable, and now they waited, poised on the precipice of an unknown cataclysm. He cleared his throat, the sound echoing unnaturally in the vast chamber, and addressed the assemblage, his voice a low, resonant hum that resonated deep within the chests of those present. Anomalies persist. The readings are inconsistent. He paused, searching for a word to encapsulate the sheer absurdity of the situation. Unprecedented. His words hung in the silence, a testament to the krill's absolute confusion and growing horror. All contact with the newly discovered species, the humans, had been severed. Their systems had gone dark. The ship sent to observe them at a respectful distance, the ones that had been ordered to maintain a strictly non-interventional posture, had vanished without a trace. The vast emptiness of space swallowed their presence completely. Sensor readings, once a symphony of information, now flickered with erratic data, a jumbled mess of energy signatures that defied all Krillian understanding. They have breached our communications. Our scans are returning nothing. It is as if they have vanished. His multiple eyes swiveled again, studying the faces of the other counselors, each of whom mirrored his own bewilderment and dread. Counselor Xylera, renowned for her sharp intellect and unwavering pragmatism, broke the silence. "This is impossible, Xyler. We have dedicated countless cycles to understanding the intricacies of the human psyche, their technology. We have observed their primitive societal structures. We have analyzed their language." She paused, her voice tinged with a chilling note of disbelief. "We are the Krill. We are masters of the void. And yet this is a mystery that eludes even our most advanced predictive algorithms." The other counselors murmured their agreement. Their initial assessment of humanity, based on their limited observations, had been one of cautious optimism, a species ripe for assimilation. They had anticipated a period of veiled influence, slowly guiding the humans toward a predetermined path of integration into the Krill Empire. The humans were seen as a species with great potential, but also a clear technological disadvantage, their societies chaotic, their understanding of the universe rudimentary at best. They had been deemed a manageable threat, a stepping stone on their path to galactic domination. But then came the silence. The Krill had underestimated the speed with which the humans would develop and adapt. They had been wrong about their inherent capabilities. It was a mistake that could cost them everything. The Grand Conclave was the heart of Krill power, a testament to their longevity and technological prowess. It was also the site of their deepest fears, a monument to their anxieties. The Krill had evolved to a state of near perfection, a society of absolute control, order, and absolute predictability. The universe was theirs to command. Now, it was a terrifyingly unpredictable game. The arrival of the humans had disrupted that equilibrium, injecting an element of chaos that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their existence. The chamber hummed with restless energy. Counselor Vex, known for his volatile nature and swift condemnations, finally unleashed the unspoken dread. "These humans, they are a virus, they are a plague, they must be eradicated." His voice resonated with a fervor that was palpable, a call for a solution that was, in the Krillian context, usually a last resort. The sentiment was met with a chorus of dissenting murmurs. Annihilation of an entire species was not a decision taken lightly, even in the Krill Empire. Xyler raised a calming appendage. "Vex, control yourself. We do not yet understand the nature of the threat. Hasty action will only serve to escalate the situation. We must proceed with caution." His eyes flickered across the assembly, assessing the mood, gauging the willingness to follow his lead. The counselors, a collection of some of the most intelligent and experienced krill in the galaxy, were at a crossroads. They had a difficult choice to make. They had to choose how to respond to the unpredictable and unsettling actions of the humans. The holographic display above the central platform flickered to life, showing a complex array of sensor data. The readings, though still erratic, were becoming more focused. The krill's advanced sensory systems were picking up a faint, almost imperceptible signal emanating from the human homeworld, a planet named Earth in the human's language. The signal, unlike the usual chaotic energy signatures, was strangely organized, almost structured. "What is that?" Zalera asked, her voice laced with curiosity. The lead scientist on the project, a slender krill named Curel, stepped forward. "The signal is new. It is emerging from the surface. It is complex. It is too early to say for certain, but it appears to be a message." A message? The notion sent a new wave of unease through the chamber. Were the humans attempting communication, or was this a prelude to an attack? All previous contact attempts had been met with a complete and unnerving lack of response, or silence, with the gradual dismantling of any krill presence. "Can we decipher it?" Zyler asked, his gaze fixed on the display. Curel hesitated. "It will take time. The signal is encrypted with a level of sophistication we have not encountered before. We are working to break the code, but it is proving challenging." Hours blurred into days. The Grand Conclave remained in session, a hive of frenzied activity. Scientists worked around the clock, analyzing the human message, while strategists debated possible courses of action. The tension grew with each passing cycle. Then, the impossible happened. Curel, his usually calm demeanor replaced with a mix of shock and awe, rushed into the chamber. "Counselors, I believe we have broken the first layer of the encryption. The message is, it's a warning." The counselors exchanged stunned glances. A warning from humans. "They are aware of us. They are prepared," Curel stammered. "The message speaks of a defense mechanism, an ancient weapon dormant for millennia designed to eliminate threats to their existence. It says they have been observing us as well." He paused, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "They say it's called." He paused again, gathering his courage to say what he was about to say. "It's the final weapon." The chamber was plunged into an even deeper silence, the weight of the revelation crushing down on the krill. They had underestimated the humans. They had assumed they were the apex predators. They had been utterly, catastrophically wrong. The implications were staggering. If the humans possessed a weapon of such power, they could be annihilated. Zyler, ever the pragmatist, was the first to regain his composure. "What does the message say about this final weapon?" Curel quickly returned to his data station and began to project the decoded fragments. "It is complex. The weapon's location is unknown. It is dormant until triggered." He paused. "The message says the trigger is." The krill waited with bated breath. Any perceived act of aggression? A collective gasp swept through the chamber. Their fleet, positioned near the human star system, had been ordered to maintain a non-interference policy, but the sheer presence of their ships was, by human interpretation, an act of aggression. The counselors exchanged worried glances. Their arrogance, their assumption of dominance, had led them to this precarious position. Their hubris had created this perilous situation. "We must alter course," Zyler ordered, his voice commanding. "We must immediately withdraw all assets from the vicinity of the human star system. We must establish peaceful contact. We must show them we mean no harm." The order was immediately dispatched, but the damage was done. They had already entered the silent worship and had inadvertently woken the very thing they feared the most. There was no way to know if it was enough. The withdrawal was swift, but it was not without consequences. The humans, already wary of the krill's presence, were now even more suspicious. The krill, fearing annihilation, were desperate to avoid conflict. The situation had become a dangerous dance of paranoia and miscalculation. Weeks turned into months. The krill, their initial shock slowly giving way to a cautious optimism, continued their efforts to establish peaceful contact. They dispatched a diplomatic vessel, a sleek, unarmed ship specifically designed for interstellar dialogue to the human homeworld. The vessel, carrying a message of peace and goodwill, approached Earth slowly and cautiously. The message, translated into the human language, was simple: "We seek understanding, we come in peace." The response, when it finally came, was unexpected. On the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, a krill, named Zethar, experienced in diplomacy and interspecies communication, waited with bated breath as the human ship materialized in front of them, its form an exercise in understated simplicity. The vessel was modest, to put it kindly. It was a utilitarian vessel of war, without the elegance or ornamentation that the krill had come to associate with advanced civilizations. It looked as if it had been assembled quickly, cheaply, yet its simple design gave the ship a sense of underlying power. The human ship's appearance did nothing to allay the krill's anxieties. They had no idea what to expect. A holographic image flickered to life on the human vessel. The figure that materialized, an entity of sorts, was tall, slender, and bipedal with an unadorned uniform. Its skin was pale, its features sharp and defined. It looked human. It was speaking. "Greetings, Krill. We have been expecting you." Zethar felt a jolt of shock, then quickly composed himself, knowing that any display of fear would be a sign of weakness. "We come in peace," Zethar replied, his voice a steady hum. "We seek understanding." The human tilted its head slightly, a gesture that the krill had observed in the human's cultural data as a sign of consideration. "We understand. We have observed you for a considerable length of time. We understand your desire for control, for expansion, for order." The human paused, a flicker of something unreadable in its eyes. "We also understand your fear." The words struck Zethar with the force of a physical blow. How could they know their deepest fears? "We are not a threat," Zethar said, attempting to project confidence he didn't feel. "We seek only to learn and grow together." The human's expression softened, its features becoming less rigid. "We have also observed your capacity for self-deception," it stated. "You see yourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the masters of the galaxy, but you are not." Zethar's internal systems began to overload. How dare it speak to him like this? "We know of your fleet, your empire, your silent worship. We know of your final weapon. We know what you are truly capable of." The human paused again. "But we are not afraid." The words echoed in the void, a challenge that went to the core of everything the krill believed in. How was this possible? "What do you want?" Zethar asked, his voice now a mere whisper. The human smiled, a gesture that in the human lexicon was a sign of friendliness, which seemed to chill the very marrow of Zethar's being. "We want understanding," it said. "We want partnership. We want to show you the truth." The next phase of contact was a revelation. It began with the sharing of information, an exchange of scientific data, cultural insights, and philosophical debates. The krill were initially wary, expecting some kind of trick or deception, but the humans were different. They were logical, pragmatic, and remarkably forthcoming. They shared their secrets, their technology, their history, their philosophy. They allowed the krill to examine their society in great detail. The more the krill learned about the humans, the more they realized how badly they had misjudged them. The humans were not a species to be conquered or controlled. They were a civilization of incredible resilience, compassion, and a profound understanding of the universe. The krill had thought of themselves as the pinnacle of evolution. The humans had achieved a sense of something more. In the ensuing weeks, krill scientists, diplomats, and military strategists were allowed to visit Earth, to observe the humans in their natural environment. The krill learned of their history, from their primitive beginnings to their ascent into the stars. They learned of their wars, their triumphs, their failures. They learned of their art, their music, their literature, and their philosophy. The krill discovered that the humans were not motivated by a desire for power or conquest. They were driven by a yearning for knowledge, for understanding, for the betterment of their species. The krill were exposed to something they did not possess, the capacity for empathy. They had been taught to avoid emotion at all costs, to be logical, controlled, and to prioritize the collective over the individual. They had viewed emotions as a weakness to be overcome. The humans embraced their emotions, allowing them to shape their actions, their creations, their very existence. The krill were fascinated. They had been wrong. The humans' weakness was their strength. One of the most profound revelations came when the Krill were shown the final weapon. They expected to see a doomsday device, a weapon of unparalleled destruction. Instead, they were shown a complex system of defense, a network of satellites, defensive structures, and a coordinated planetary defense grid designed to protect Earth from external threats. The humans had taken every conceivable measure to ensure their survival. They had prepared for the war, sent while hoping for the best. "It is not a weapon of aggression," explained the human liaison, a woman named Dr. Evelyn Reed. Her voice, though soft, carried a tone of absolute certainty. "It is a weapon of last resort. It is designed to deter aggression, not to inflict it. We value life." The Krill were stunned. This was not the weapon of a species obsessed with conquest. It was the weapon of a species that valued peace above all else. They had failed to understand that the humans' greatest weapon was their unwavering belief in their own values. They had been wrong. "We have studied your culture, your history, your biology," Dr. Reed said. "We know the lengths you will go to ensure your survival, but we also know that you are not inherently malicious. You are, like all species, capable of both good and evil. We choose to believe in the good." The revelation was profound. The humans, despite being the underdogs, despite being the ones facing the existential threat, were the ones offering an olive branch. The Krill, the so-called masters of the galaxy, were the ones now trembling with fear. The humans then revealed their most significant secret, a key to understanding their true strength, the concept of collective consciousness. They had achieved a level of societal integration that surpassed anything the Krill had ever imagined. They had learned to work together, to share knowledge, to support each other. Their societies were not driven by competition and conflict. They were fueled by cooperation and collaboration. The Krill had seen only the surface, a chaotic collection of warring tribes. They had failed to see the underlying unity, the shared purpose, the deep-seated empathy that bound the humans together. They had seen only the differences. They had failed to see the humanity. Finally, they presented the Krill with a proposition. They asked them to join them. Not to submit, not to be conquered, not to be absorbed, to join, to work together as equals for the betterment of the galaxy. The Krill, after centuries of galactic dominance, were faced with a decision of unprecedented magnitude. To accept the humans' offer, to relinquish their control, to abandon their long-held beliefs, or to maintain their position and risk the humans' ire. The Grand Conclave reconvened, the weight of the decision bearing down on them. The initial fear of the humans had, to a large extent, dissipated. The Krill were beginning to understand the humans' true nature. They were a force of nature, an unstoppable wave of innovation, compassion, and understanding. "This is not a trap," Xyler said, addressing the assembly. "The humans are genuine. They seek not to dominate, but to collaborate. We have seen their technology. We have learned of their values. We know of their power. They are a force to be reckoned with." Counselor Vex, his initial animosity having mellowed, nodded in agreement. "They are also inspiring. Their resilience, their optimism, their willingness to extend an olive branch, it is humbling." The debate continued, but the outcome was already clear. The Krill, though hesitant, were slowly embracing the new reality. They would forge an alliance with the humans. They would work together. The Krill did not like to admit they had been wrong. It was their nature to be infallible. Xyler cleared his throat, addressing the chamber. "We must abandon our preconceived notions. We must embrace this partnership. It is the only path forward." A wave of nods ran through the assembly. The Krill had made their decision. The formal agreement was signed in a ceremony on Earth, a testament to the alliance between the Krill and the humans, a turning point in galactic history. Representatives from both species gathered in a neutral location, a vast, open space designed to reflect the diversity of the cosmos. The atmosphere was one of celebration, yet beneath the surface, a deep sense of introspection permeated the Krill's thoughts. They had lost their position as the apex predators, the absolute rulers of the galaxy. But they had gained something even more valuable, a partner. Dr. Reed, representing the humans, stood alongside Xyler. She smiled, a gesture that at this point was a familiar sight for the Krill. "Today, we celebrate not just an alliance between our species, but a step toward a brighter future for all. A future built on understanding, on cooperation, and on the unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of all sentient life. The Krill, accustomed to stoicism, could not help but be moved by the sincerity of her words. Xyler stepped forward, his voice echoing in the vast space. We, the Krill Empire, have learned much in the face of this experience. We underestimated the humans. We misjudged their potential. We thought we were the masters of the cosmos, but the humans have shown us the true meaning of power. He paused, searching for the right words. The true power lies not in conquest, but in collaboration. Not in control, but in empathy. Not in fear, but in hope. The Krill, for the first time in their history, had found something they could believe in again. The ceremony was a success. The alliance was sealed. But even as the Krill and humans celebrated their newfound unity, a shadow lingered, a sense of foreboding that could not be shaken. The human-Krill alliance had been a watershed moment in the galaxy's history. But there were forces beyond the comprehension of both species, forces that had been observing, waiting, and plotting for eons. The universe was vast, and there were far more secrets than either species could have ever imagined. As the alliance celebrated, a signal, a whisper from the beginning of time, pierced the void, echoing throughout the cosmos. It was a signal that had remained dormant for eons, buried in the cosmic background radiation. It was a message from an ancient civilization, far older than either the Krill or the humans, a civilization that had mastered technology beyond comprehension. The signal was simple, yet profound. The Guardians awaken. The Krill, their minds now intertwined with the humans, quickly realized the truth. The humans had been right. There were greater threats in the universe than the Krill themselves. Their understanding of their new alliance changed with the revelation. The celebration was cut short. The leaders of both species, their faces etched with newfound concern, gathered in a closed-door meeting. "What does this mean?" Xyler asked, his voice strained. Dr. Reed sighed, her expression grave. "It means we are not alone, and the Guardians, they are not benevolent." The Guardians? The name sent a shiver down the spine of every Krill and human present. They knew the legends, the whispers, the ancient prophecies. The Guardians were beings of immense power, ancient beings who were said to have shaped the galaxy, beings who had been the originators of countless species. But they were also said to be merciless. "We have studied their signals, their technology, their history," one of the human scientists said. "The Guardians were responsible for the creation of many species, including us, but they did so with a purpose. They sought to create an army, a vast legion of warriors to fight a war we do not yet understand." The Krill and the humans exchanged horrified glances. They have been dormant for eons, but now they are awakening. The implications were catastrophic. The humans and the Krill, who had barely just overcome their initial distrust, were now facing a threat that dwarfed any they had ever encountered. The Guardians were a force of pure, unadulterated power. They were not to be reasoned with. They were not to be negotiated with. They were a force of utter destruction. "We must prepare," Xyler stated, his voice resolute. "We must combine our forces. We must use everything we have learned to fight for our survival." The humans, their faces grim, nodded in agreement. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they were not ones to back down. They were the ones who had faced annihilation before. They would do so again. "We have studied their weaknesses, their habits, their culture, their technology. We have learned everything," Dr. Reed said, her voice filled with conviction. "We know how they think, their culture, their history, their biology. We know their power." "We must prepare," she finished. The two species, once enemies, now allies, turned their attention to the looming threat. The Krill, using their vast knowledge of the cosmos and their technological prowess, worked in concert with the humans, whose ingenuity and innovation knew no bounds. They began to build defenses, to develop new weapons, to create strategies to combat the Guardians. They learned quickly, they adapted, they united. But the final twist came unexpectedly. As the Krill and humans prepared for war, a new signal emerged from the depths of space, a signal that changed everything. The signal was a cry for help. It came from a distant galaxy, from a species that was unfamiliar, a species that was being relentlessly pursued by the Guardians. The message contained a simple plea: "Help us." the krill and the humans were faced with another difficult choice. Should they focus on their own survival, fortifying their defenses and preparing for the Guardians' arrival? Or should they risk everything and come to the aid of another species, to risk weakening their own defenses? Dr. Reed, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and sadness, stepped forward. We cannot stand by. We cannot let another species suffer the same fate. We must answer their call. Xyler, his gaze unwavering, agreed. We are united. We must extend our hand. The two species made their decision. They chose to answer the cry for help. They decided to risk everything. They decided to embrace their final, united destiny. A combined fleet, composed of krill vessels and human warships, prepared to journey into the unknown. They knew that they might never return. They knew that they would be facing a force that had the power to crush them. They knew that their chances were slim, but they knew what they had to do. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading towards the distant galaxy, a new understanding of the universe took hold, a realization that went beyond the understanding of their civilizations. It was not about conquest, not about control, not about fear. It was about unity, about compassion, about understanding, and about fighting for the future of all sentient life. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the ship sped through the void, Dr. Reed and Xyler, standing together on the bridge of the flagship, reflected on the long, difficult, and exhilarating journey that had brought them to this moment. They had overcome their differences, their fears, and their prejudices. They had formed an alliance that was built on respect, trust, and shared values. And now, they were preparing to face their ultimate test. "Are you ready?" Dr. Reed asked, her voice soft. Xyler nodded. "We are ready." As the fleet sped toward the unknown, a silent prayer filled the vastness of space. "We are ready,"